Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 82nd installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Behar Bechukosai, another double portion, because sometimes the Torah has to be doubled up in order to finish the entire Torah within a year. And every so many years there'll be a leap year, there'll be an extra month, because there's 11-day difference between the lunar calendar and the solar calendar, so I have to make up time for that. So therefore, Passover has to be in the spring, Sukkot has to be in the fall. So you need to, account for that. So in a non-leap year, there are more parshas that are doubled up, so that the holidays will, they'll be in the right time for sure, and we'll be able to finish. More importantly, we'll be able to finish the Torah within the year. So the Parshas of Behar speaks about the laws of Shemitah, the sabbatical year. Talks about the importance of leaving the land fallow in the land of Israel. Speaks about all that, and the redemption of the land. Speaks about Levite cities, etc. Parshas Bechukosai speaks about observing God's commandments and the punishments. What happens if you don't observe what God wants you to do? So that I think we're gonna maybe we'll be I'll be Mr. Doom and Gloom today, about the curses. So at the beginning of the parsha, chapter 26, verse 3, it says, "If you follow my decrees, observe my commandments, perform them, then I will provide your rains in their time, and the land will give its produce, the tree of its field will give fruit, your threshing will last until the vintage will last until the sowing, you'll eat your bread to be satiated, you'll be satiated by it, and you will dwell securely in your land." So then it goes on to say all these good things that are going to happen if you follow God's decrees. And here it means that when you follow God's decrees, that you're working very hard. You're working very hard. It's called the Melus B'Torah. Melus B'Torah means how much effort I put in, in order to learn Torah. If I put in maximum effort, I'm definitely going to get a lot out of my learning and my observance, etc. So here, you do the right thing, everything's good. Now, we go down to verse 14. Again, chapter 26, verse 14. "But if you will not listen to me," now we need the scary music. Dun, 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 right? "If you will not listen to me, you will not perform all these commandments, you consider my decrees loathsome, and you reject my ordinances, you don't perform my commandments, so you annul my covenant, I will do the same to you. I will sign upon you panic, swelling lesions, burning fever." That doesn't sound so good. Go even further. In verse 27 it says, "If despite this you will not heed me, and you behave towards me with casualness, I'll behave towards you with a fury of casualness, I will chastise you. Even I, 7 ways for your sins, you eat the flesh of your sons, flesh of your daughters will you eat, I'll destroy your lofty buildings, decimate your sun idols, cast your carcass upon the carcass of your idols, my spirit will reject you, I'll lay your cities in ruin, I will make your sanctuaries desolate." I mean, it's getting good, right? "And your foes who dwell upon it will be desolate. You I will scatter among the nations. I will unleash the sword either after you. Your land will be desolate. Your cities will be a ruin." Well, this is pretty bad. And not only is it pretty bad, but we know that many of these curses certainly have happened. Go back to the Second Temple, destruction of the Second Temple. And the Talmud tells us people were starving. They had no food. So here, you'll eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. There's stories of women that ate their children. They were starving. They had no food. Now, people will make the mistake, and they'll say by the curse, over here, verse 15, "You consider my decrees loathsome, And if your being rejects my ordinances so as not to perform my commandments, so that you annul my covenant. Now I will do the same to you. Now it doesn't mean that we're not going to be chosen anymore. The covenant's still going to stick. It just means that God's going to act as if, we're not special anymore, and all the guards are down, and we're going to get severely punished. So you see from here, clear, and this is really what I want to focus on, and that is a very uncomfortable subject for most people, and that is one of the 13 principles of faith, that by Maimonides, that is reward and punishment. So the Torah says clear, if you do what you're supposed to do, that's good, everything will be good. If you don't, there is going to be serious payback. Serious payback means, you're going to have these lesions, you're going to suffer tremendously. You have carcasses on the idols. You'll eat your kids. I mean, these are pretty severe. These are definitely pretty severe. So, sounds like such a great covenant that God brings the Jewish people in at Mount Sinai. Jewish people say, not seven Ishma. They say, we will do, and then we will hear. We don't care what's written in the Torah. God has a track record, so we'll do whatever God tells us. We'll make God our king. He'll make us his servants. We are his servants, for better or for worse. Now, but the problem is that since we are servants to the king, if the servants to the king transgress, right, what is the king going to do? The king is going to punish his servants, right? It only makes sense. Because if we weren't his servants, what would he care? Right? So we could, a person can do what they want. Seemingly there shouldn't be any repercussions. So we see that's not true either. Because, what about the non-Jews? Non-Jews also get, moved around and bad things happen and all kinds of things, but they're not, they're not chosen, so why should they get punished? They should be able to do whatever they want. Well, there's a body of law. There's a body of law that God manufactured himself. He called it the Torah. So, since he made it himself, he gave it over to Moshe. Moshe passed it down to us. Moshe set up law courts, and every law court in every generation has the same status as Moshe and the law courts back then. Doesn't mean they're equal, certainly in knowledge by any stretch, because obviously previous rabbinical courts are much greater than the rabbinical courts that I spoke about last week. You can check out the video of that by Parshas Behar about previous generations. So even if they are greater, they still have the same status, meaning they have the right to interpret the law in every generation. Now, it doesn't mean we're changing things. It means that sometimes laws have to be evaluated, right? What the Torah says and how it's brought down, how the rabbis bring it down. There may be certain things that we do today that they didn't have 2,000 years ago. One example is famous example is about making a fire. You're not allowed to kindle a fire on Shabbos. So what about electricity? You say, oh, electricity, he's changing the Torah. No, we're trying to see if electricity fits in the category of fire. If it does, it's going to be forbidden on Shabbos. You won't be allowed to turn on or off your lights or any other electrical thing. So that being said, the Torah has to be understood, right? For every generation, not everything in every generation was discussed, 200 years ago, was discussed 500 years ago, right? Technology is moving very quickly, as many can see. So we have to see how things fit in. So in either case, that's not really the topic, even though we spoke about it a number of times, it's not the topic for now. The idea is, and this is where it gets scarier, is that there is this thing called reward and punishment. Now, our forefathers made a covenant with God, and God made a covenant with them. That covenant was forever. It wasn't changed. It wasn't, well, if I feel like doing it, fine. If I don't feel like doing it, also fine. If you're born a Jew, or you convert to Judaism, if you're the real deal, then it's all or nothing. You have to keep what the Torah says. If you don't keep what it says, you're going to be punished. Now, obviously, there'll be a difference if you did it on purpose, if you did it by accident, if you knew better. Maybe a person grew up as as a potato farmer in Idaho, right? No offense to anyone who was a potato farmer or grew up in Idaho, right? But if someone grew up not knowing anything as a Jew, okay, they're going to be held liable, but certainly not the same as if they, did something on purpose. It's a rebellion against God, right? It's really considered a rebellion, so why not throw the book at them? Can't throw the book at them because they don't know. It's like they've been captured by the non-Jews. They don't know. So if they don't know, how is it possible that they should be punished severely? But there is no free lunch. Don't pass go, don't collect 200. There is no free lunch. So therefore, as the Torah here says, if you don't do what I want you to do, you are going to be spit out of the land. Now that lends to a extremely important question, and that is, why should God punish us? Right? Why should God punish us if we do anything wrong? Where's our free will? In other words, a person's born a Jew. Right? We'll deal with non-Jews. Maybe we'll get to non-Jews. A person's born a Jew. Right? They have a choice. They have free choice. They're born a Jew, they have a free choice. They want to keep the Torah, they don't want to keep the Torah, even if a person is brought up as an Orthodox Jew. Even if they're brought up as an Orthodox Jew, there's no guarantee that they're going to stay an Orthodox Jew their entire life. As the Talmud brings down, that the Torah is not a Yerusha. Right? The Torah is not an inheritance from that famous verse, Ma Tovo Lecha Yaakov, right? Mishkanosecha Yisrael. That, how good we are your tents, O Jacob, right? It's a nice verse. But we learn out, not sure it's from that verse, it could be a different verse. Don't quote me on that. The Talmud learns out that when we say that it's an inheritance for Yaakov, that's what it means over here. That it's it's not going to be an inheritance. Meaning the Torah, even if a person grew up in the most religious of families, as an Orthodox Jew, there's no guarantee they're going to stay that way. And the results that we've seen, there are people leaving the faith, leaving the fold, even growing up as Orthodox Jews. That's a whole discussion in and of itself. There are a lot of factors involved in that. The main factors are, problem in the house, between the parents. Could be a learning disability, could be both. I mean, there are a number of factors that could possibly be, involved in that. Nonetheless, even though people do leave the fold, you see that they have free choice. No one's putting a gun to their head. On the other hand, as the Ramchal or Moshe Chaim Luzzatto in his epic work, Derech Hashem, in the Way of God, where he discusses why God created the world, purpose of man, status of the nations, what they are here for, divine providence, how that works, spiritual forces, etc. I happen to give a class on that once a week, every Tuesday night. Nonetheless, the Ramchal there says that God set up the world in a specific way. There are a lot of checks and balances. God created evil as well. So he allows evil to do whatever it needs to do, but the main purpose of creating evil, which goes against all Christian doctrine here, is that the purpose of evil is to give people free will. Right? If a person wants to go in that way, they can. Obviously, God doesn't want them to, but if they do, that's their choice. But keep in mind, if they do, they will get punished. So, if a Jew or non-Jew, whatever is applicable to a non-Jew, if they don't keep what the Torah says that they have to keep, they're going to pay a price. Again, it's going to depend on a number of factors. It's going to depend on why he did it, where he was holding at the time, or why she did it, right? We're not going to discriminate. Where they were holding at the time. What was in their mind, when they did it. There are a number of factors involved. Sometimes they'll be held more accountable. Sometimes they'll be held less accountable. And it's not for me. I'm not here to judge. God will do that. There are statements that the Torah makes. As you see, some things are, definitely more severe. Right? Let's say by not keeping the laws of Shabbos as a Jew. Right? Punishment is skila. It's corporal punishment. We don't have a temple today. We don't have a Sanhedrin in Jerusalem either. So if a person got warned for the right category, and he says, I don't care, I want to do it anyway on Shabbos, 2 witnesses are there, he does it, They could take him out to be killed, to be stoned, meaning they take him to a 3-story building, throw him on his head, and if that doesn't kill him, take a big stone, aim for his heart. Well, that should do the job. You see, by homosexuality, Torah calls it an abomination, not the person, but the act. And that's also liable for the death penalty by stoning. So there are a number of things that the Torah says is more severe. Punishment is more severe. So, make no mistake, even if it's not punishable by death, right, it's certainly not good for me. Now, why is it, let's analyze like this. Why is it that God has to do this? Well, if you look at the 13 principles of Maimonides, the first is God has to be absolute. Right? There can't be anyone but him. No one else has power besides him. He's unique. Right? The second of the 13 principles, he's unique. There's nothing like him. In the world above, in the world below, absolutely zero. That is like him. And if we go down the list, he has the ability to reward and punish. Now, if God is absolute, that means there's no such thing as moral relativism. Moral relativism means, you're okay, I'm okay, you do what you want to do, I'll do what I want to do, never the two paths shall meet. So, okay, so if I want to eat a ham sandwich, if a Jew wants to eat a ham sandwich, so let him eat a ham sandwich, what do you care? Right? Why should it bother you? You want to keep Shabbos and pray all day? So you keep Shabbos and pray all day. I'll go eat my ham sandwich. All right? People don't want to be left alone. They don't want to be told what to do, and what they're doing is wrong. And all that, but keep in mind, if you go down that path, there is going to be payback. Now, even if there's going to be payback, person may say, well, that's not fair. My free choice is taken away. Right? Why? Because the Ramchal says, I didn't get to what the Ramchal says, but I'm going to get to it now. The Ramchal says that God set up the world in a certain way. Right? There are certain checks, there are certain balances, which I mentioned before. But that being said, these checks and balances, God is orchestrating everything. There is nothing outside of him. So all these other forces don't have power unless God wills them to have power. They cannot act. They certainly cannot act on their own. That being said, so God's putting us in all kinds of situations. Some of them definitely caused by ourselves. Right? We can be our own worst enemy. And because of what we do will cause different repercussions. There's always, everyone has to remember the 614th commandments, don't be stupid. And the 615th commandment is don't be a moron. Right? So you have to act in a way that is, that certainly is proper. Now, if you do something stupid, God can say, I don't have to stop you. You did it. You did it to yourself. So there'll be repercussions from that. There are other times, though, as the Ramchal points out, God will put you in a certain situation. He'll sort of box you in a corner based on maybe nothing you did, but in order to test you. Right? The evil inclination is going to come and test you. Let's see how you're going to react. They're going to say, well, where's my free will? I didn't choose this. It wasn't my actions that chose this. Could be. But what happens? God puts you in a corner. He boxes you in a corner. Now he says, okay, let's see what you're going to do. Is it going to go like this? Is it going to go high up? Or is it going to go down? Is it going to go according to his base values, meaning go according to his physicality? Or is it going to rise to the occasion, go according to his spiritual side, knock off his physical side, and become the great spiritual person that they can be? So that may not be our choice. Right? There are a number of times God can put us in these situations to see what exactly we are going to do or not. Now, so a person will say, if that's true, where's my free will? How can I be held accountable? My free will is taken away, but no one's putting a gun to your head to go one way or the other. Right? Or, a person comes upon whatever you fill in the situation, and a person can go one way or the other. You have a choice. Right? You can make the wrong choice, but no one's putting a gun to your head to make you that choice, but there could be all kinds of factors involved in a person making that choice. Right? Maybe he's got more of a tendency towards, doing this transgression. Let's say stealing. Maybe he's got more of a tendency. His soul has more of a tendency towards that. Or, any number of things. At the end of the day, God doesn't care. Even if God put those tendencies in your soul, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to act on them, right? That we've spoken about many times. And if a person does act on them, it doesn't matter what his disposition is. he's still going to be liable. Right? Someone will say, he came from a broken home. Who cares if he came from a broken home? Right? We'll knock out Mr. Freud for a second. And they'll say he's not responsible. How can he be held responsible? Look how he grew up. His parents were drug addicts, father was the head of the mafia, whatever. So how can you expect this person to be normal? Well, if a person gets caught doing whatever they're doing, they're not going to use that as an excuse. You think they're going to, a person gets caught, let's say for manslaughter. You're going to say, what can I do? It's just in my genes. Just because he grew up in that lifestyle, terrible as it may be, why is the judge over here going to have compassion? Killed someone in cold blood. Right? I'm not talking about you defended yourself, whatever. Killed someone in cold blood. Right? So why in the world does the judge have any compassion because of the way you grew up? Who cares the way you grew up? It's tragic. It's sad. It's all, we'll figure out some more synonyms, as we go along. But it doesn't matter. Right? It does not matter. The only thing that can possibly save a person, not going to save him from seeing the light of day. What can only possibly save them is by declaring insanity, right? If they're not all mentally there. So then, then the playing field's a little bit different, right? Then the whole thing is different because he's not, that he can't be held responsible because he's sick, right? He's definitely mentally sick. If he's mentally sick, there's a whole different set of parameters, right? For that, it doesn't mean he's not going to have to, he's going to pay a price. He's certainly going to pay a price. Right? But it's not the same. He just killed a cold-blooded murder and he knew what he was doing. And he had 100%, all his faculties were there. So, God has to judge. And there has to be judgment. Otherwise, as the Rambam says, he cannot be God. Because he has to be absolute. Things don't change. Morality is going to stay the same. It's going to be consistent. And it's going to be for all generations. It's not going to be just for this generation. Or it's not going to be, 50 years ago, this is what we did. 50 years later, we're much more sophisticated. We understand things better. Much more open-minded. Etc. So we'll let these things go. Well, that means that is a man-made world. And a man-made world, the way man would run it would be a disaster. Right? As we see how it's being run, even with all the judgment that goes on with, in the courts and, everything else, the world looks like a disaster. People killing and murder and, all kinds of things, that go on that are certainly bad. They are certainly bad, for us. But God put us in this world in order to sort of, climb out of all this murkiness, of all this, disgusting stuff. And he gave us a way out. The way out and the way to stay on the right path is to hold on to the Torah. To do what the Torah wants. If you do and uphold what the Torah is, in its ideal state, you are going to be one heck of a moral person. Where's morality come from? It comes from God himself. God cannot be immoral and give his stamp of approval for all of morality, in this book. It's kind of like, Mr. Bertrand Russell, very famous for teaching ethics and was totally unethical. One of his students said, how do you teach ethics and be so unethical? And he said, if I taught mathematics, would you expect me to be a square? Take Mr. Aristotle. Mr. Aristotle, one of the greatest thinkers, of all time. Aristotle was a tremendous womanizer. So when his students caught him once, they said, how can Aristotle, you famous philosopher, Aristotle, how could you do this? And Aristotle looked at them and said, is Aristotle the philosopher? Is Aristotle the mathematician? Right? There's Aristotle the womanizer. So, there's no contradiction. Now, as Jews or Noahides, there is a contradiction. We have, to the best of our ability, have to keep what the Torah says, even if we don't understand it. That's why the Torah there says, keep my laws and ordinances. An ordinance is something you don't understand. It's called the chok, right? In the language of the Torah. Chok is a law. Literally means a law. It's translated as an ordinance. And an ordinance is a law I don't understand, right? It's impossible for me to understand. One example, the red heifer. Right? You look at the Parshas Chukas, which is going to come up in a number of weeks. Parshas Chukas is about the red heifer. And the red heifer says, the red heifer says that, the Parsha about the red heifer says that the Kohen takes the red heifer, burns it, spreads the ashes on a person, and that person is going to become pure, and at the same time, the Kohen himself is going to become impure. Well, that's a contradiction in terms. How can somebody make somebody pure, and at the same time, he himself becomes impure? Right? That we don't understand. That we can't understand. I mean, we have to try and understand the best of our ability, but that is something that is seemingly beyond comprehension. So if you look at what the Torah says over here, the Torah says clear, if you don't keep my ordinances also, and they are loathsome to you, meaning you don't care, you're casual, well, guess what? God's also going to be casual. We've seen through the years, right? Through different pogroms, and the Holocaust and other things, where God just sort of turns the other way. It doesn't protect his people, and they just get slaughtered, right? Totally slaughtered. And we may look at it as, it's totally unfair. Look at all these people, tens of thousands of people get killed. Now, we have to understand, when God says, you didn't keep my covenant. So not keeping the covenant and seemingly slaughtering innocent people, seems like a contradiction. Now, obviously, in God's eyes, there are no contradictions. We don't know what's going on, in God's mind. But keep in mind, we'll give you the following idea. Imagine, God forbid, a person speaks badly against someone else. For whatever reason, right? Whether the person deserves it, doesn't deserve it. They speak Lashon Hara. They speak badly against someone else. They speak badly against someone else. What happens? The only way they can get atonement as is if they go to the person they spoke about and they end up getting forgiveness from that person. Now, they don't have to say what they did. All they have to do is say, before Yom Kippur, if I said anything or I did anything against you, do you forgive me? But what happens if you don't do that? You can shake up and down as much as you want in Yom Kippur. You can beat your chest, 100 times and say, I've sinned in front of you, blah, 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 blah. You don't ask the person for forgiveness. It's still there. So now keep in mind, you, whoever you are, spoke Lashon Hara against someone, even if it's true. It doesn't matter. Even if it's true, it's still forbidden. So that being the case, you spoke against them. Now you created something spiritually impure at the moment. You made a spiritual imprint, negative spiritual imprint in the world. Because you were careless. Or even if you weren't careless, you didn't care. You spoke against somebody else. So unless you ask that person for forgiveness, that's never taken away. And it's going to follow you upstairs. So if that's true, then imagine what I've just done. I have just spiritually polluted the universe. If I spiritually polluted the universe, multiply that by, however many people do it at that time or continue to do it, it's like God's getting zapped left and right. It's like saying, God, we're not careful with your law. We don't care about your law. It doesn't matter how I grew up. A person grew up as an Orthodox Jew, they still got to be careful doing things that are wrong, right? So a person can be careless, and a person can be not thinking, whatever, or, a person just, says it because he feels better by saying it. Whatever the case is. Why in the world, if a person does that, we made a covenant. It was made with Abraham, passed it down to Yitzchak, passed it down to Yaakov, Yaakov passed it down to us. That covenant sticks. So if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we spiritually pollute the universe 1 billion times a day. Right? Lashon Hara is at least 36 sins in one shot. Right? So a person speaks Lashon Hara, for a while. Many times during the day. I mean, exponentially, that's like millions of transgressions. So it's like taking these bows and arrows and go, chung, 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 kind of like playing Asteroids, that old Asteroids game. So what happens is that all these things attack God's world. They are spiritual impurities in this world. So God does have mercy. He'll wait for someone to repent and do tshuva, and if the person doesn't, so then God may have to take things into his own hand, may have to hit them personally, maybe in their pocket, maybe sickness, whatever it is. But don't make any mistake. There will be payback. Even if we don't necessarily see what a person does, what the payback is. And the obvious question is, how do evil people have it easy? Seemingly, people that don't keep the Torah, it seems like they have it pretty easy. Livelihood, other things, nothing seems to go wrong with for them. So, that's a much bigger issue. But make no mistake, everybody's going to get theirs in the end, right? Whether they get it in this world or they get it in the next, they are going to pay. There is going to be a serious price to pay. But nobody can say, after watching this video, after listening for the last half hour, no one can say what I do doesn't matter, right? If we understood, now I mentioned this many times also, if we understood that the severity of our actions, and we saw, let's say someone spoke badly against someone else. We'll use this as an example. Someone spoke and they saw what that spiritual imprint looks like in the world, right? That negative spiritual imprint. We'll see what it looks like and the effect that it has, all the way down the line. I think if a person saw that and it was made visual to them, I think they think twice, 3 times, 4 times before they do anything. Now, I might say, wow, that wouldn't happen because that would take away a person's free will. So, that wouldn't necessarily take away their free will. Right? In other words, they understand it, they've seen it, but the question is, does it make an imprint, on them? There are stories of people, of Jews, let's say, that have had out-of-body experiences. They were clinically dead. They were non-religious Jews. They woke up, they came back to their body, miraculously, and it took them a while to find their way to Torah. Now, you would think if someone has an out-of-body experience, and they experience everything that the Zohar says, what's going to happen? You're going to see, your soul's going to float above the body, it's going to go towards this light, you're going to see all your, everything you did in your life, flash before your eyes. All these things that Kabbalah says, that the Zohar says clear. How come a person, when they wake up, after, hopefully they get better, they get rehabilitated, meaning body's rehabilitated, etc. How come during that process they don't become an Orthodox Jew straight away? What's stopping them? They've had an unbelievable miracle. Well, for whatever reason, why this miracle happened doesn't matter. They come back to their body, should have been dead, should have clearly been dead, and they come back and like nothing happened. Now again, rehabilitation process could be a long time. Whatever the case is, doesn't matter. Why is it right then they wake up, they make a declaration, God is true, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, changing my life. Right? When I get better and I get out of here, I'm changing my life. It's not automatic. You would think it would be. You would think someone has that type of experience, God's taken away their free will. Well, you see, when he slaps them back in their body, right, that doesn't happen. They do not become Orthodox Jews straight away. There's a book called The View from Above. Forget who it's written by. You can Google it, or it's probably on Amazon. It's called The View from Above. It's about a secular Israeli that gets clocked on the head by a beam, like 5, 6 stories. She's at a building site. And she has this out-of-body experience. She grew up in a secular kibbutz, I think. It took her 7 years to come back to Torah. 7 years! Not automatic. Definitely not automatic. That just means that we have a tremendous amount of free will. And even if a person comes out of it, it's going to take them a while to get to a point where they accept upon themselves that, yeah, this happened for a reason. And I came back to my body for a reason. And I saw my life flash before me, and probably a lot of things in their life they didn't like, etc. So this makes the person think. But a person doesn't necessarily choose that path straight away. That is the power of free will. If it would be that a person's free will was compromised, yeah, then once a person has that type of experience, or they experience something else where, chances are they shouldn't be here, then they would change straight away. They would see that clear, but they don't. Many people don't. And, if someone, gets in an accident, let's say they come out of it pretty much unscathed, when they really shouldn't be here. It's a wake-up call. It's a major, major wake-up call. The question is, did you get the message? And if you didn't get the message, ooh, that's worse. Then, because God did something for you, and you didn't get the message. But the point, I don't want to get sidetracked here. The point is, what we do, in some way, shape, or form, is going to affect us, and we'll be judged on it either for good or for bad. Now, if what we do is bad, and we don't do tshuva, so we have these curses. And unfortunately, these curses have come to fruition. So, we're just not given, we're not given the eyes to see. If something would flash in front of our eyes, like, okay, you do this, this is going to happen, and you see something direct, again, it's taking away your free will. But let's imagine, that, yes, God did create the world. He did create right and wrong because he told us what is right and what is wrong. And a person, as the Talmud says that a person only sins when it enters inside of him a ruach shtus, like stupid thoughts, a stupid spirit, gets inside of him, not that we're possessed, but something stupid possesses us, a stupid thought or whatever, because we're not really thinking about what we're doing. Yes, this may be wrong, but we do it anyway, right? And then we get so used to it, it becomes like second nature. So it's a much harder thing to fight against. But God says, this is bad for you. I don't want you to do this. And if you do this, it's going to affect you negatively, right? Spiritually, it's going to affect you negatively, and it may affect you physically as well, right? I may have to do things that I don't want to have to do, but, there is reward and punishment. And the punishment could be very severe, extremely severe, as the Torah here points out. So, and you see verse after verse, you're going to be hounded, you're going to be running for your life, you're, God forbid, going to eat your children. These are pretty serious curses. So you might ask, what is God, a masochist? He has, God's like fickle, and he, God forbid, and he's got to give these like nasty punishments. Like, what does God care? What does God care? Let me live the life I want to. Like someone came to my Rebbe once in South Africa right before Rosh Hashanah, and he tells my Rebbe he wants a bracha, so he wants a blessing. So the Rebbe says, what blessing do you want? He said, listen, I've been very successful this year, financially. So I want God, to mind his own business and leave me alone. And, not to butt into my life. My Rebbe looks at him and is like, what, are you kidding? Like, God runs the world. Obviously, God has an impact, on our lives. How in the world can you say, well, God should butt out? God shouldn't have any contact. Let me do what I want to do. I'm doing very well right now, so let's leave it. Don't ruin it. Don't do anything to spoil the fun. So Rebbe said, you're out of your mind. I mean, he didn't say you're out of your mind, but, he said that's not the way it works. God runs the world. God, intervenes in history. So, there has to be this idea of justice. We may not understand it fully, right? Because there are plenty of things we see that just don't add up. But, if God gave us a book, make it a little more graphic. God gave us a book, manufactured it himself, passes it down to his trusted servant Moshe. Moshe passes it down, right? Passes it down to the Jewish people, gives us all these laws. We have interpretations of what it means, and oral tradition, and and all that. And that's what we have to keep. Now, if God says, I know this is good for you, you may not understand it, and I don't care, but this is manufactured by me. I know better, right? Because I created the world, in 6 days. I created the creepy crawly things. I created the Leviathan. Created all these things you have no control over. And I keep nature going every day. Otherwise, you'd all be dead. So I understand, right? That's fad, right? So you understand how powerful I am. Now, if I'm telling you this is good for you, and all these good things are going to happen if you keep it, I know what I'm talking about. Because I know the ins and outs of all this. If I tell you it's bad, and I tell you you're going to ruin your connection to me, and punishment, is going to be severe, I don't want to have to punish. God punishes like a father has to, punish a child. Right? As a parent will say, well, this is going to hurt you a lot more is going to hurt me. Whap! Right? Okay, that's not good education. But God is like a loving parent. He does not want to have to punish. But if you spit at him, in this case, you are loathsome. You think his laws are loathsome to you. You just hate them. You despise them. You don't want to keep them, etc. And the fact that God sustains life, sustains your life, and all that. Why do we think, why do we think that there shouldn't be payback? Why do we think that everything's going to be good? Definitely shouldn't think that. God in His infinite wisdom knows what He's doing. So what I'm getting at is, what we do can have unbelievable repercussions. Small things, big things, but there will be payback. And God will pay back as He seems fit. But you have to understand what you're doing. And what way you're going. And if you're doing something that is so egregious in God's eyes, you're as if to say you're spitting at Him, so to speak. Why shouldn't there be severe punishment? Right? Again, we're speaking about a world where, God created it and He intervenes in history. And there's divine providence. Right? That's the world we're talking about. So, if that's the case, and you go against the king, and this is the King of Kings, you go against the king, then that's it. The king has the right, depending how upset he gets, it's going to depend on what he does. And we can't have an excuse and say, I didn't know. Ignorance, well, maybe bliss up to a point. The person doesn't know anything, and they weren't taught anything, they couldn't have found out anything, okay, so they'll be held less liable. But they're still going to be liable. Alright, the 614th commandment. They'll still be liable. At the same time, we have an obligation. As servants, we have to do what God wants us to do. We have no choice. But see, we shouldn't look at it, well, if I don't do it, I'm going to fry in hell forever, right? That's what the Christians tell you. You don't believe in JC, you're going to fry in hell forever. So you're going to say, well, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, I'm also going to fry. Right? I'm also going to be severely punished. That's true. You need fear of God, that's for sure. And if you only have fear of God, you'll never pass that down to your kids. Because your kids will say, I don't want to eat these 3 pounds of matzah in 35 seconds and whistle Dixie. Say, shut up, kid, and eat the matzah. Otherwise, you're going to fry in hell forever. Going to fry in hell forever? Okay. Eat the matzah. Chomp, 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 chomp. See how well you can whistle Dixie? Doesn't sound like so much fun. Right? If we really understood what the Torah wanted from us, it's not about just frying in hell forever. Right? Not just about punishment. Not just about doom and gloom. It's doing what we believe is right because God told us it's right. And it makes sense, most of it. Some of it. Right? Will make sense. And the other stuff we can't make sense out of, God knows what He's doing. So if that's true, then my responsibility is an awesome responsibility. My responsibility is I have to get out there and do the best I can be. Right? I have to be the best I can be. So if I messed up one day, tomorrow's another day. Right? You want to work hard. You want to, work hard and striving to be closer to God. That's the goal. And God told you how to do it. But He didn't say it's going to be easy. He didn't say, I'm going to roll the red carpet and make it so easy. He was going to make it so easy that everyone would have wanted to join before the Jewish people got the Torah. But He made clear it's not going to be easy. Just because it's not easy doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. But you see, if a person was really had the values that they should, then whatever goes on in the outside world shouldn't matter. There's certain things that look a lot more fun. Everyone, you see how people walk today or interact today? They got a stupid phone in front of their face. Right? That's all they can see is a phone. Is right in the palm of their hand, or they're sitting at a computer, or whatever. Hey, you're also sitting at a computer. Yeah, it's true. But I don't have my face in it. 24/7. I do enough stuff on it, true. But I don't have a handheld device I can do also. Not interested. Bad enough I'm online as much as I am. Right? That's a whole different discussion. But you see how people interact today or don't interact today. It's all about things instantaneous. Getting things instantaneous, getting news, videos, whatever. Everything is like split second. Everything happens very quickly. And, there's a lack of communication today because people are too stuck in their stupid handheld devices. They just can't get out of it. So there's a lot of distraction in the world. So God says, yeah, of course there's a lot of distraction. I created it. I allowed people to create it. Does he want you to be part of it? No. Does he understand people get sucked in? Yeah. Does he allow the evil inclination and let people get sucked in? Yeah. Doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean you should. That's a struggle. We all struggle with that. So we have to be the best we can be. We have to strive to be at the highest level. And keep in mind, the higher we go, the more responsible we are. Therefore, if you're very close to the king, even for something minor, you could get burnt. So they say, well, better to be ignorant. Well, you're going to pay for that also. So at the end of the day, all we want to do is do what we can do to be the best we can be. In the eyes of God and the parameters of what God set out. Right? And that means to the rabbis, or old tradition, right, to know what we need to do and, to learn about it, to exemplify it. We're getting closer next few weeks. We got a few more weeks till Shavuos. Right? We've been counting all these days, counting the Omer, and we're getting to the 49th day, another week and a half. We're going to get to the 49th day, right? And the day after that is going to be Shavuos. And Shavuos is the holiday where God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. So we stay up all night, learning the Torah, etc. So, there's a tremendous time. It's an auspicious time to rededicate, renew, our commitment to Torah. And, realize that even if we fail, and even if we make mistakes, God's going to understand we make mistakes because he created man. He understands what man is. At the same time, even if we make mistakes, kind of like that bad boxer, gets knocked down a whole bunch of times, but what does he do? He brushes himself off, he gets back up, and he gets back in the ring. Or it could be he gets knocked out. Either way. Right? We'll say he gets up and he gets back in the ring. Right? You got to take your best step forward even if you get knocked down. You get knocked down once, you get knocked out twice, 3 times. God doesn't care. Right? He's the one putting you in this position anyway. So we should realize that, yeah, that's a wake-up call. I have to keep getting up. I have to show that no matter what God does, he has to run his world. We have to become the best that we can be, regardless of what's out there. And that is not an easy thing to do, by any stretch. One thing to keep in mind, right? The more we learn, the more we build, right? Step by step, we're going to get to higher levels. We're definitely going to get to higher levels. When we get to higher levels, we have, a whole different awareness. And that awareness is going to lead to fear of God. But fear of God doesn't allow you to get the love of God because you're too afraid of doing anything, which we mentioned before. If a person understands God runs the world and I have to be the best I can be, and I have to give of myself, right? Put myself as much as I can. That's what it says at the beginning. Bechukosai telechu, you go in God's ways, meaning you work as hard as you can, maximizing that 3% of your brain on a daily basis, getting to absolute truth, and learning God's Torah and being inspired. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. Especially when we get beaten down by, what's thrown at us in life. God says, I don't care. I want you to strive. And if you show that it's not important, and if you show that, these things are loathsome to you, and it's, you don't care and you're casual, I'm going to make a difference. And I'm going to show. And I'm going to bring all these curses to fruition, God forbid, if that's what you show. We don't want that. We don't want that, but understand there's a reality. And the reality is, whatever I do, it will have repercussions. I want to remind everyone, I have a course. It's called Discover Your Biblical Path. 6 modules. Someone coming out of Christianity or idolatry, any type of idolatry, and they want to make a concrete decision of what it means to be a Noahide or what it means to be a Jew. So I went through a number of modules explaining what it means to be a Jew. Some of the holidays and Shabbos, and also what it means to be a Noahide, as well as how to find a rabbi, a mentor, whether to be a Noahide or a convert, and how to find a Jewish community. Again, either as a Noahide or a convert. There are also 7 interviews with either Noahites, people didn't want to convert or couldn't convert, or in people that did convert, or in the middle, they're still in the middle of converting. Also, I have an Intro to Kabbalah class. We're now working on the Shema and its blessings. We're going to speak about everyday life and what a person does. So you don't want to miss that. It's 9 o'clock every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock New York time. I'm also going to be on Tanakh Talk on Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central Time. We're going to keep going through crazy things that the Talmud says. We're going to continue with that for controversial issues. And I have two question and answer sessions. One on Tuesday at 10 a.m. New York time. One on Thursday at 2 p.m. New York time. And anyone who can't make those, I put them up on Facebook anyway. Also, I give conversion classes, Noahide classes. Take a look at my Facebook fan page at Beyond Orthodox Conversion and Judaism, or Beyond Noahides, or my blog, orthodoxconversion.com. Anyone wants to contact me at rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, rabbichaimcoffman @gmail.com. Everyone have a great Shabbos.